This seems too high, but am I coming across okay? Usually I'm told don't touch it. Is that okay? Good. Okay, good morning everyone. Good morning Zoomers. Wet my whistle first. Did you know that this weekend the Chinese community is celebrating the Moon Festival? Our friends who had lived several years in China were drooling at the thought of mooncakes. Sudbury has been known for its many summer festivals: the Blueberry Festival, the Ukrainian Festival, the Italian Festival, the Greek Festival, the Japan Festival, and Afrofest are more recent additions. Of course, we all know that the annual Rib Fest at the end of August is in celebration of Adam donating a rib so God could create Eve as a partner for him. You're supposed to laugh. The Jewish community also has many feast days or festivals. As the Children's Time so well illustrated, a very important one still celebrated today is the Festival of the Booths, or Booths, celebrating the goodness of God. In the leader, Joanna Harder provides more insight into this festival, which is sometimes called the Feast of Tabernacle or Sukkot. It is one of three major festivals for which the Israelites were expected to make a pilgrimage to the temple in Jerusalem, if possible. In John 7, we see that Jesus traveled to the temple during the Festival of Booths. This festival takes place in autumn and focuses on giving thanks for the harvest. Note the flowers and tomatoes. The passages in Leviticus and Deuteronomy relate several aspects of this celebration. First, the people are to rest and to take a break from their regular jobs. In addition, people are to rejoice and celebrate. After the hard work of harvest, there is time to relax and to enjoy fruit of their labors, literally and figuratively. Another important aspect of the festival is the offerings presented to God, discussed in the Leviticus passage. It seems that there are designated days to give different types of offerings, above and beyond the general offerings that people regularly give. Finally, there are the booths for which the festival is named. The people are to build and dwell in temporary shelters during the festival as a reminder of their ancestors released from captivity in Egypt and their time in the wilderness. Every aspect of this celebration points to God's abundant provision for these people, the abundance of time to take a break and rest, the abundance of food in the harvest, the abundance of resources that allows for people to give offerings, and the reminder of the wilderness time when God provided manna and quail from heaven and water in the desert. The passage in Deuteronomy particularly highlights the fact that this celebration is to be observed by everyone. You and your sons and your daughters, your male and female slaves, as well as the Levites, the strangers, the orphans, and the widows resident in your towns. While society recognizes certain people as landowners and believes that the harvest from the land belongs to these owners, God insists that the harvest is for everyone, and all should enjoy the bounty and celebrate God's provision. Reflecting again on Sudbury's many festivals, we need to celebrate the multicultural nature of our city. Originally, many immigrants and refugees came to Sudbury to work underground in the mines, for which the main qualification was weighing 140 pounds. Many of these were from Eastern Europe. Others came to provide services for the newcomers, Later, many engineers and doctors and other educated people from less well-known countries followed. By 2023, we have 82 different cultures and different nations within our Sudbury community. The Bridge of Nations has 82 waving flags celebrating the goodness of God in providing a home for these many different cultures. We need to celebrate this harvest of ethnicity. Let us take a few minutes to rejoice in its scope. May I have some volunteers? Maybe Curtis, Russell, Art, Katya? You're volunteering to read because my voice is squeaky. I just want us to take a minute to really appreciate the multicultural aspect of our community. So I'm going to start and read about 8 names, and then you can each do the same. Come to the mic, please, when you do. Okay, we have flags. We have a Bridge of Nations. We have a bridge crossing old railroad tracks, and that's our Bridge of Nations. I don't know if you saw it or not, Lloyd and Erla. Anyway, it's lined with flags. So these are the countries represented in our community: Antigua and Barbuda, Australia, Austria, Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Brazil, Bulgaria, Burundi. Start with the C and read about 8.
Canada, Chile, China, Colombia, Croatia, Cuba, Cyprus, Czech Republic, and Denmark.
So you're starting in Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Guyana, Haiti.
Okay, we'll let Art take over there.
Good reading. Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Jamaica. That's where we're going this winter. Japan and Kenya.
Latvia, Lebanon, Lithuania, Mexico, Morocco, Nepal, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nigeria, Norway. Did you want me to continue?
Yeah.
All right, just tap me when you want me to stop. Pakistan, Peru, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Republic of Macedonia, Romania, Russia, Scotland, Senegal, Serbia, Slovakia, Slovenia, South Africa, South Korea, Spain, Sri Lanka, Sudan, Sweden, Switzerland.
Thank you.
Trinidad and Tobago, Tunisia, Turkey, Ukraine, United Kingdom, United States, Uruguay, Venezuela, Zimbabwe.
Okay, thank you. And then they list nations: Anishinaabe, England, Franco-Ontarian, Métis, Northern Ireland, Palestine, Scotland, and Wales. So did you know that we were that multicultural a community? By now you should know. Anyway, we need to celebrate our community's diversity. How does that compare to New Hamburg? Anyway, We also need to celebrate the local success of the original inhabitants of our community, the Indigenous First Peoples. The 31 First Nations under the Huron-Robinson and Huron-Superior Treaty of 1850 have finally received a settlement to compensate the lack of fulfillment of their treaty rights. This past Thursday to Saturday, leaders met in Garden River to consider the handling of the settlement, some community-based, some individual. Of course, the serious discussions were followed by a feast, giving thanks to the Creator for reconciliation finally accomplished. And I'm not sure if I should be announcing this, should I, Howard? We celebrate God's goodness in our lives. In particular, we celebrate the announcement of Marianne Matthews' engagement this past Monday. I thought she might want to have done it herself, but there, I've blown it. Christine Giblin, who she and Brian both have COVID, declares, "I can say with confidence that whatever challenge life sends, I can turn to God for love and support." She had a list of specific items that demonstrated God's goodness throughout their recent move from Little Fairbank Lake to Logan Street in Gatchel. Although I couldn't open her note on my computer. So I'll mention a few I'm aware of. She couldn't stay to listen to the last sermon I preached because she attended the birthday party of a child on her school bus. She was invited. How many bus drivers get invited to a kid's birthday party? Not many. Anyway, Christine's a pretty special bus driver and she was invited. The parents of that child, I believe new neighbors, then helped to unload the storage cube they were renting so they could stop paying rent for it once they'd moved to Gatchel. I believe Krista and Strawn, Peter and Andrea helped to pack up prior to their move out at Fairbank Lake. And Lana's friends also helped unload at this end. Now that they've both have COVID, some soups and frozen yogurt bars were provided. And this was my turn originally to preach. However, we thought we'd be at holidays, some exotic place in Canada, like the Arctic or somewhere. But because of Megan's illness, we just got home late this week, and here I am. So Christine was off the hook for having to preach. Looking back at the Israelites' week of camping in booths, we need to recognize that there's also an important call in these scripture passages to remember the faith story of our ancestors, not just through words, but by reenacting a piece of the wilderness story. Should we go back to worshiping annually in 1A Water School, or to meeting in Malin and Norma's basement for church while the church was built? No, our current practicalities would not enable that. Yet, our annual Father's Day celebration at Fielding Park may be a taste of the outdoor open-air meetings of the 1950s. Moreover, we do need to remember the large cloud of witnesses who have gone before us and are now cheering us on. Scripture, I'm forgetting the reference, do you know, Howard? Hebrews 11 refers to the cloud of witnesses, meaning the Christians who have died and are cheering us on alongside God. I'm going to take a few minutes to remind people. Viola Salo, Helen McCabe, Helen and Wilfred Salo, Helmut and Lila Whiprucht, George Augustine, Marion McLennan, Daniel Jones, Rick Ahala, Don Forbeck, George Friesen, Jackie and Eddie White, Vivian Moxham, Peter and Erna Jansen, Dolores Charbonneau, Mrs. Filmchuk, Lori Jansen, Emil and Mrs. Hine, Doris and Wes Alkenbrack, Ben Bourne, Menno and Marguerite Ediger, Tillman and Janet Martin, Henry Schrader, George Alsasser, Helen Lindhurst, Malin and Norma Bast, and Thomas and Elvina Martin. I'm sure I've missed some. Nonetheless, we do need to remember and give thanks for the contributions these people have made as they shared faith with us at Waters and demonstrated the goodness of God. Though she is still living, I will also include Irma Friesen, who will be turning 100 years old in October. God has granted her longevity. None of these people were perfect. Some were more dedicated to God's service than others, but they all shared faith with us and encompass our great cloud of witnesses. Many others still living have also shared faith with us, but then moved away or worship elsewhere. We still celebrate the face of God they brought to us. This past Thursday, we were privileged to watch via Zoom the celebration of life for Dieter Dick from the Ottawa Mennonite Church. Dieter was a talented and gifted musician with several degrees. He offered much to others, running the sound system and being custodian at that church. Since the war in Ukraine, Dieter was 64, I believe. Since the war in Ukraine, he and his elderly widowed father opened their home to a mother and her 3 teen sons. They shared in Ukrainian what Dieter meant to them, and her son translated. She shared in Ukrainian what Dieter meant to their family, and her son translated into English. The 3 boys then sang one of Dieter's songs. In fact, 90% of the music at the funeral was composed by Dieter. However, Dieter also suffered from schizophrenia and low self-worth. He could not appreciate that God loved him and accepted him as he was. Nevertheless, he depended on his faith and the support of his church community to sustain him. People like Dieter and others experiencing differences must also be included among the people for whom we give thanks and whom we celebrate. We are all God's children. Dan Riley writes, "We need to look everyone and everything in the face and be amazed at the face of God looking back at us." It is also our task to be sure that the goodness of God is shared with those beyond the borders of our tent or our booth. Riley also says, encountering the impoverished, walking for a while in the world of the marginalized, and being with the have-nots of our world is a necessary aspect of the discipleship journey. For whom must we be the face of God? How can we share the harvest and God's goodness with others? For what harvest should we personally be giving thanks? For the bounty of God's goodness. For what harvest should we be giving thanks as a community? I'll leave those questions with you to think about.
Thank you for that, Mary. That's a wonderful reminder of our diverse community that we live in, and just hadn't really thought about it much, but think about the final harvest when God calls us all home, and people from all over the world, different countries and different skin colors and different